In today's review of KLM Royal Dutch Airlines 787-9 business class, you're gonna see me getting served freshly drafted Heineken in one of the best business class lounges in Europe, and discovering that the Dutch somehow made the tulip a flavor in hand sanitizer. But I was also served one of the most atrocious things I've ever seen on an airplane. And despite this burger from hell, I would still like to claim that KLM has a really good business class product. And no, that is not because I paid less than economy for this flight.
Ooh, what a cold day here in Budapest. Oh, it's freezing here. Whew. Traveling Europe is not that easy, you know. You get to see churches, riverbanks, and then more churches. It's so tiring traveling all around the world. You know what? I need a vacation from my vacation. Let's go to the Caribbean.
Before I head into the lounge, I saw a sign that directed me to an observation deck, and as an aviation enthusiast, I had to give it a try.
What the You need to buy a ticket?
After cursing at this capitalistic dystopia for a solid 3 minutes, I had to head over to the SkyCourt contract lounge that my KLM business class ticket granted me access to. Situated in a relatively claustrophobic position, the modern interior design allowed me a brief sigh of relief, but it really just seemed like a generic contract lounge, with almost no specialty pointed out to you that you are in one of the most historical cities in the entire world. And strangely, on the racks, it only features lifestyle magazines from Holland? But at least the alcohol selection is a little bit more worldwide. And as a person who refused to read ink printed on dead trees, it was perfectly acceptable for me. And the food offering is relatively wide for a contract lounge, which features a myriad of healthy choices, ranging from fruit salads to this vegan dessert that is free from almost every single substance in the entire world that tasted really good. Initially, I thought it would just be packaged air, but I was truly blown away by how good sugar can taste like, even in the absence of milk and butter. And of course, with all of these free-flowing alcohol and this high-quality Hungarian bubbly, I got a little bit carried away.
What? You mean business class is for business people? Look, there are some of those business people in their suits and ties, and they are always on their phone, talking on their phone. And then there's another kind of business people, okay, like me, who are in crappy dress shirts and khakis and constantly talk to himself into the camera, okay? It's a no judge zone here. And I just want to say, I really appreciate you guys watching my videos, following me all around the world on this journey, clicking like on this video, subscribing to the channel. Cheers for you, mate. Oh yeah.
After I regained a little bit of composure, I realized my flight was already boarding, so I quickly stumbled my way across the terminal and boarded my short-haul flight to Amsterdam. The seat, as expected, which is branded as European business class, is no business class at all. It is simply an economy row with a blocked middle seat. The legroom was relatively acceptable, but for anything more than 3 hours, you should have got something better than this. But at least I had the pre-departure beverage with me, so it was all a-okay. So before I can enjoy the true long-haul experience of KLM's business class, I had to endure this pseudo-business class for a few hours. And as the famous Chinese philosopher Tupac always said, no pain, no gain. quickly after takeoff, the in-flight services began. The meal I was presented comes in a nicely decorated KLM themed box. And after taking off the lid, I found a menu that is almost not necessary given the fact that the food is literally in front of you. It consists of a pomegranate salad, some couscous, and a handful of falafels. While the contents inside were tossed around quite a bit, the presentation was still very nice. My favorite part is what comes as the stirrer for my Coke. It has a tiny crown, the symbol of the KLM Airlines, sitting at the top, which is a really nice touch. I took a quick bite of the falafel and quickly noted that it is sufficiently spiced, despite the fact that it just came out of the refrigerator a few seconds ago. So this might not be the best option for an unheated onboard meal. But my favorite part has to go to these salt and pepper shakers. These are shaped like wooden clocks that Netherlands is very famous for. Because apparently for them, if the tulips and the windmills cannot catch your eyes, their best secret representative of the country is a pair of shoes that are way too hard to walk around with. I immediately decided that this pair is gonna come with me and they will make an absolutely fantastic souvenir. Following popular demand, the bathroom review segment returns on today's broadcasting, except there is really nothing I can talk about other than it is just the most generic plain bathroom ever. Oh, but at least you can try to play with a toilet seat, my favorite pastime.
20 minutes later.
Wow, the flight attendants of that flight is just, they're the nicest I've ever had. They kept asking me, oh, like, where are you going? Like, how are you gonna enjoy your trip, you know? Are you sure you don't want anything else? Because by the end of the flight, they'll just come around, they're so sorry, just like, I'm so sorry, I didn't offer you enough drink, do you want more? But I was stuffed. This is one of the nicest flight attendants I've ever had. Oh my god, they sell tulip bulbs in the airport. Look. Yeah, you can buy some tulip and ship it back to your home. Oh yes, cheese, 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 and herring, oh my god.
That is enough dilly-dallying in the airport terminal, because for me, the best experience is about to come. Let me introduce you to the KLM Crown Lounge, the highlight of any business class experience originating from Amsterdam. And the first thing that greeted you as you ascended the escalator towards the lounge proper was a huge wall of the famous KLM Delft Houses. And I will introduce them in much more detail when I finally get my hands on one of them on board. And my first impression upon entering the lounge is its sheer size and absolute beauty. The entire floor space is divided into 5 separate sections: the city, the sea, the sky, the polder, and the self-deprecating joke of a Dutch mountain. And the most obvious area has to be the sea, where the majority of the space is dedicated to. It has a multitude of lounging options ranging from a lot of small sofas in different colors arranged in all kinds of shapes, facing quite a few TVs broadcasting live sports, and the magazine rack where the Holland Lifestyle magazine truly belongs. And it also features a quiet area inside which are a range of small lounging chairs that I can totally snooze an entire afternoon away. The sea is also the area where you can take a shower, and I can confidently claim this is a world-class shower suite that can rival some of the best that is offered in the business class lounges ranked at the top of the top. And next up is the sky section. It features a large bar and a restaurant, along with an open-air terrace. Sadly, this area was completely devoid of human life when I visited in late 2021. But according to recent news, the restaurant as well as the bar is gonna make a full comeback once the pandemic is over. Just having a restaurant in a business class lounge is already a very impressive feat, and KLM managed to deck it out with a complete bar and a majestic view. Now that is something that I have to give props to. And do I need to mention the Dutch's attention to detail? All of the decorations and mood were completely designed to suit around the theme of the region. And I have no doubt the dishes they will serve in the restaurant will be absolutely fantastic. Meanwhile, on the polder side is all of the working area. While all of the cubbies and tables are cool, they are incredibly dull for someone who is heading to the Caribbean like me. So I instead diverted my attention to the vintage posters and memorabilia plastered all around the corners. These are some of the most exciting things I have ever seen in an airline lounge, and any aviation enthusiast has to pay this lounge a detailed visit. And now we move on to the city section, where all of the services are provided. This is the area where they can provide you travel assistance if you need any help regarding your itinerary, and the agents staffed here are some of the best in the entire industry. But to me, the more important part is the fully laid out buffet section, where it features a very wide, colorful, and healthy choice typical to a Western European nation like Netherlands. And I was glad that I'm able to partake in some of the most delicious buffet food I have ever had in any business class lounge. Even though I was previously a little bit dejected about not being able to eat in the Sky restaurant one floor above. But I mean, how can you be mad at these? And to finish off all of the catering, KLM delivered its final punch. And I wouldn't want it any other way.
Oh look, there's even tanks by Heineken. This is the most Dutch thing ever. That's all Heineken. So Heineken in the Netherlands, it doesn't get much better than this. Cheers.
And I saved the best section for the last. This is the Dutch mountain. And for a nation whose land is almost entirely under the sea level, this section that spans the 2 flights of stairs might as well just be the highest point in the entire country. And there is also no doubt that this section also doubles as the highest point of any journey on KLM. Because it is not only just an area for you to relax, but also an area where you can examine the soul of this historical airline. Old trijet models, vintage placards, actual copies of old 1960 route charts, and genuine artifacts from the bygone golden era of aviation are all decked out on the glass displays all around this area. And I have to say, this goes into my favorite area in any business class lounge ever. Because this not only shows KLM's meticulous planning and rich history, but it also showed me that they have a proper soul. And in this hyper-capitalistic post-consumerism industry today, it is an extremely rare sight. And I guess this was the moment I realized this might be one of my favorite business class lounges ever. When you go into any other lounge, you are a customer. But here in KLM's Crown Lounge, you are an honored guest.
As much as I want to stay here forever, I have to go because it's already final call for my flight to New York. This is already the best day in my trip so far, and I'm not even on the flight yet.
After making my way to the boarding gate, I found myself in the midst of chaos. A last-minute equipment swap on the airplane was exacerbated by a random attestation form the crew produced out of thin air. But luckily, after a few minutes of scrambling, I quickly wafted my way down the jet bridge and was greeted by the friendly purser, who directed me to my seat. I made the iconic left turn and ended up in the front business class cabin. And here it is, my gorgeous home for the next 7 hours. Let's take a closer look of my seat. To my left side is a large cubby featuring a pair of noise-cancelling headphones. It is extremely spacious and you can see the water bottle as a size comparison. Turning my attention to the front, the reverse herringbone seat means that the entertainment screen had to be folded away during taxi and takeoff. And the footwell beneath that is large enough to fit both a pillow and a blanket. And here you can see that it is definitely on the spacious side, with my water bottle as a size comparison. And tucked away on the surface facing away from me is the power outlets. Despite its unusual placement, I do appreciate them trying to save as much space as possible. On the right side, right underneath my elbow, is the armrest, which can be raised with a touch of a button. It is just a little bit less intuitive than a lot of the other designs. And finally, on the headrest to my left on my eye level, right next to the entertainment controls is a small lamp, which can be turned on by simply pushing in on the other side. It is not exactly what I will call adjustable, but it is perfectly functional. And lastly, let's take a closer look of the dining table. It folds out as a half from right underneath the table surface. While it can be pushed forward and backwards quite a lot, it is definitely on the flimsier side. On a comfort standpoint, these extra thick seatbelts are more for safety concerns rather than luxury, and the width of the seat on my shoulder level, both to my left side and to my right side, is perfectly acceptable. And the privacy it provides is a little bit better than a lot of the reverse herringbone seat configurations out there. But sadly, the last minute equipment swap changed my 787-10 into a 787-9. My seat 5A is turned into one of those very few rare seats that does not have a rear window, but luckily I still have one more in the front. And now let's take a closer look of the entertainment system. It pops out by pushing a small button next to the bottom, and you can adjust its angle according to your height. The screen is very touch sensitive and responsive, even though it might not be the highest fidelity in the industry. The movie and game selection is large enough that you should not be troubled finding something you would like, given the fact that Wi-Fi is not free even for the business class passengers. And one of the better things about a newer system like this is that you can control the screen, which is relatively far away, with a small control pad next to you. And finally, we move on to the Amenity Kit. This cloth package is very colorful but relatively flimsy, and once you open it up, the items contained inside are not exactly the best of the best. Besides the normal compression sock and eye shade, you can also find a small dental kit, a pen, and the lip balm, as well as the face moisturizer from a 17-year-old white girl's favorite brand, Rituals. Meanwhile, outside the box, you can also find additional amenities featured during this COVID time. A lot of hand gel is provided to you, both in package forms as well as bottle forms, and you can also find the menu lying on the tabletop. But that is enough dilly-dallying. It is time to take off towards New York JFK. So let's get the show on the way. As we quickly leveled off heading west across the Atlantic, let's take a look at the menu. The New York route is such a prestigious route that it features a specific menu and a special message at the front. And once you open it up, you can see that the first meal that we are gonna have is a 4-course dinner. The main course has 3 distinct options and seems to be well curated by the chef. And then right before landing, our service will be a light meal. Given the fact that we will barely land before midnight, a second supper will be a little bit too much. And once you flip it over, you can also see all of the cocktails as well as alcoholic beverages. And unlike my last review on JetBlue across the Atlantic, KLM at least features a proper champagne. And besides the usual suspects of heavy liquor, this page does not have too much to discuss. And lastly, the last page features all of the non-alcoholic beverages, but I do not plan to fly business class sober anytime soon. And a few minutes later, I was presented with a pack of packaged nuts as well as the champagne. You can see the string of bubbles consistently emitting from the glass chute, and that tells you this is no simple bubbly wine. After gulping down all of the liquids in 3 seconds, I was quickly presented with my appetizer. I chose the Waldorf salad with pulled duck and cream with a walnut dressing. And its presentation is absolutely fantastic. The proper plated meal sitting in the middle under the light is almost at restaurant quality. And after taking a bite, I can tell you that this is no simple task. Having duck this juicy and fragrant even when chilled is a very difficult thing to pull off. Haha. As for the main course, I chose the chicken thigh in soy sauce along with lemongrass, yellow onions, carrots, and potatoes. This dish, in turn, is much less eye-dazzling compared to the appetizer, but it gets the job done. A saucy chicken can never come out wrong after an oven bake. And finally, for dessert, I decided to forgo the famous cheese plate, because you have to pay me a business class ticket in order to eat blue cheese. So I instead opted for the sweet bites. And you can see the cappuccino ganache, caramel crumb cake, and sticky toffee tartieret, and they are absolutely delicious. After licking all of the cream clean off the plate, I folded away the dining table and put back the entertainment system. I just wanted to kick back and relax without all of the distractions. I couldn't help but think about how lucky I am, since I have the privilege to fly this entire itinerary for less than $600. Yes, you heard me right. I'm flying all the way from Budapest to St. Thomas Island in the Caribbean, and then flying all the way back on business class for less than economy. So technically, this leg of my flight into New York should cost less than $300. And how did I manage to do that? Well, you see, during the pandemic, Delta was not taking care of its revenue management and had a tiny little mishap where they forgot the fuel surcharge of the entire flight. And that resulted in all business class departing from Budapest to small places in United States priced way below economy, let alone the normal price of business class. Even though they have currently fixed the problem, you can still subscribe to my channel in order to follow up on my newest community tab posts. If I encounter a deal like this again, which happens quite frequently if you can believe it, you will be the first one to know. But that is enough inner monologue, let's try to check out the Wi-Fi system. KLM only offers free Wi-Fi for texting and messaging, but the cost for having high-speed Wi-Fi for the entire flight is only 18 euros, so I think it is a pretty good deal. But for a cheapskate like me, I would rather go for a different kind of entertainment.
Well, this is bathroom review, and normally most of the bathrooms are pretty boring, right? So I usually don't review them, but this one has tulips. Handed body lotion, tulip flavor. Everything is tulip flavor in Netherlands. Body mist, tulip flavor. Hair gel, also tulip flavor.
And hey, even the wallpaper features the Delft Houses that KLM is so famous for.
Here's the most exciting part. You know, this is why it's called a business class.
On the way back from the loo, I accidentally took a little peek into the crew resting area. Yeah, this is where your cute flight attendant disappeared to when you ask her for a 4th bottle of red wine. But seeing them resting so well that they even forgot to close the door and hide this room that normally passengers are not supposed to notice, I realized it is time for me to take a little snooze as well. Thinking about the fact that I paid less than almost every single person back in economy, I passed out with a large grin on my face.
Later that same evening.
I slept so well that I was woken up by the crew in order to enjoy my light meal before landing. And indeed, we only had 1 hour and 20 minutes left on this journey. And quickly, I was served with all of the dishes in one tray. Along with the gorgeous Portuguese egg tart, there was also an olive salad. But the main show of this meal has to be the king of burgers. Yes, this is what they called it on the menu. But nothing could possibly prepare me for what is inside this cute newspaper wrap. What the heck is this? The entire thing has been burnt to a crisp. All of the cheese have completely melted and stuck solid onto the newspaper wrappings. And the veggie patty itself has lost all of its moisture and tastes exactly like burnt rocks. And I am 99% sure it was not supposed to be in this color. How could they possibly bake a burger in the wrapping wrong? And the only thing I can claim is that this is the single nastiest thing I have ever had on an airplane. So I decided to take a little bite. I could taste the remnant of what was once upon a time some sauce, but all I could smell in my nose was burnt toast. So I quickly delivered it back to the pits of hell where it came from. But luckily, the next thing coming up would totally change my mood. These are the famous KLM Delft Houses that they serve to intercontinental business passengers near the end of their journeys. Painted with a traditional Dutch technique that has been perfected in the past few centuries. And every single year, they introduce a new model to compound onto the old collection. So until this year, there has been more than 100 different Delft Houses from all around the country. And thus, it is not surprising that Delft Houses have become one of the hottest collector items in the aviation world, along with the teddy bears from Singapore Airlines, as well as the Lufthansa first class rubber ducks. So I randomly picked the biggest one that was offered to me on the tray, and it turned out to be number 85, which is, surprisingly, the only Delft Houses that has ever been produced that is outside of Netherlands. This is one of the most famous houses from Curaçao, and I couldn't believe how lucky or perhaps unlucky I was. But I was just incredibly excited that I finally managed to get my hands onto one of them. because they are not only just beautiful decorations you can put onto your shelf, but they also contain some genuine Dutch Geneva alcohol. This is because back in the days, some laws prohibited airlines trying to sway customers with expensive gifts. So KLM came up with this genuine solution by serving some of their most iconic alcohol in these handcrafted houses that happen to be really good looking, and you can possibly take them back home with you if you want. So there is no better way to end a business class flight than this KLM pseudo wine bottle. And before I could even thank the warm hostesses for all of their help, as well as their genuine yet professional service, we were quickly approaching New York JFK Airport. So let's watch this landing as well as the city from the air above. This journey is not over yet. You would have to pay me a business class ticket to come to this frigid hellhole that is New York City in the middle of winter. So I had to continue my journey, but first I had to meet up with my new friend Josh, who I met in an earlier part of this trip, and I hopped onto his car, drove to his favorite bar, had a lot of drinks, had even more wings, and pet a dog before I passed out in my hotel room, just to wake up the next morning to take my Delta Airlines connecting flight into St. Thomas Island. So before I show you the final score of KLM business class, it is time for a quick montage. Now that we are in a much more pleasant place, let's give KLM 787-9 business class a grade. First up is the ground experience. The Amsterdam lounge is absolutely fantastic. And as a major legacy carrier, KLM offers all of the bells and whistles that comes with business class, such as priority boarding and priority security. But the only thing preventing it from getting a perfect score is the potential concern for overcrowding in the lounges and the lack of a private escort to the airplane. So it gets an outstanding 66 out of 70. Next up is the seat. It is a typical reverse herringbone seat, but a little bit wider and with a lot of customization. The privacy is relatively high, and the only gripe I have is that the in-flight entertainment screen might not be the most modern in the entire aviation world. But overall, I'm very satisfied and decided to give it a 62 out of 70. And the third grade is amenities. While the bathroom is very decked out, the amenity kit KLM decides to offer is very bare bones. And there's not even pajama on this flagship route. But the cute Delft Houses definitely elevated KLM above a lot of the other standard carriers. So I decided to give it a 47 out of 70. And now comes the weakest of all of the 6 categories for KLM, the food. Besides the absolutely atrocious charcoal burger, all of the other food and drinks offered on the flight is nothing much to talk about. They are just generic food plated on relatively nice dishes, but I really cannot tell if there is anything Dutch about this chicken or this pulled duck. So overall, the food and drink department leaves a lot of room for improvement, and it gets a 26 out of 70. The fifth category is the service, and there are not enough words I can use to describe how friendly a lot of these KLM flight attendants are. They are extremely experienced and professional, but at the same time, they never lost the charm of trying to treat you like family. And there's absolutely no reason why I would not give them a 62 out of 70. And finally comes the value. KLM is part of the major conglomerate of KLM Air France, and they are quite competitive in every market involving Europe, but their sale prices are never crazy low out of the line. Given the fact that I paid less than economy on this flight, I will have to give a score on this criteria based on their normal sale prices. So KLM is given an average 44 out of 70. And adding them all up, KLM 787-9 gets a commanding 307 out of 420, which beats JetBlue, the airline I reviewed in an earlier part of this trip. This is only understandable because JetBlue does not even offer a lounge to the business class passenger on their most prestigious route to London, so KLM has to come on top of it no matter what. And now with the KLM business class behind us, it is finally time to enjoy my beach vacation in the Caribbean. So don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to join me in the next part for a budget trip around St. Thomas Island. And like this video if you enjoyed this review. And if you want to check out any other business class review, here is the playlist. And hopefully very soon, I will see you in paradise on Earth.